My brother stalked my girlfriend, attacked her at a wedding, and now my parents want me to help him after he ended up in prison. I, a 31-year-old guy, grew up with my younger brother Logan, a 28-year-old male, in a typical middle-class neighborhood in Minnesota, where everyone had good lawns, but no one understood what was going on behind closed doors. My parents have a profitable real estate firm together. Dad does the sales while Mom handles the marketing and paperwork. They make a comfortable living, but they've always been concerned about looks. Like unhealthy obsession. People who would rather die than let the neighbors know there is something wrong with their beautiful little family. Logan is 3 years younger than me, and I still remember when they brought him home from the hospital. That was pretty much the day I quit being important. Everything revolved around Logan, his grades, his sports, and his potential. My mother would practically interrupt me in mid-sentence if Logan needed anything. Dad fared no better. If Logan wanted to throw a ball around, he would cancel our plans right away. Growing up, there were so many warning flags about Logan that my parents simply pretended not to see. When I was 9 and Logan was 6, I saved up my money for around 6 months to buy the game system I really wanted. My parents would not simply buy it for me. They suggested I should understand the value of money or something. But then Logan invited some friends over and I refused to let them play with it since, I had just purchased it with my own money. The next morning I discovered it was crushed to pieces. When I showed my parents, my mother just sighed and said, "Well, you should have shared with your brother. You know how he gets when he's upset." Then that weekend they purchased Logan his own system, which was better than mine because they didn't want to quarrel anymore. I didn't have mine replaced. I simply had to watch Logan play with his new one. That kind of nonsense happens all the time. When we were teenagers, I had this hamster that I adored. Logan fed it chocolate once when I was at soccer practice, knowing it would kill it. When I questioned him after discovering it dead, he simply shrugged and remarked, "It was just a stupid rat anyway." My parents told me I shouldn't have pets if I wasn't going to take good care of them, as if it were my fault. The worst thing about Logan is that, to others, he appears to be a wonderful, charming individual. He does all of this to appear good to his neighbors and family friends. He'd mow an elderly lady's lawn or assist someone with shopping, but only if others were around. Behind closed doors, he was an entirely different person. He would say things like, "Mom and Dad will always believe me over you," with a smile that never left his eyes, and he was always correct. In high school, I finally found a girlfriend who I really liked. We'd been together for around 6 months when she abruptly dumped me. Logan later revealed to her and her friends that I had been cheating on her with a girl from another school. Complete rubbish. But everyone believed him because he was such a nice person. My folks claimed he was being protective of my girlfriend. Like, what the hell? By the time we reached our 20s, I'd moved out, but Logan was still living at home, working at my father's real estate firm, driving a car they got him, and being pampered like a prince. Logan's concern was directed at every lady I introduced to my family. He convinced one girl's parents that I had a gambling issue and claimed that I was emotionally abusive to another. My parents always backed him up, leaving me seeming like the bad guy. Then I met Sophie in the hospital cafe. I was visiting a friend who had his appendix removed, and she was on a break from her job as a pediatric nurse. We began discussing how bad hospital food is, and something just clicked between us. She's intelligent, caring, and laughs at my dumb jokes. For the first time, I felt like I'd discovered someone who saw me for who I was, rather than the loser image Logan had made for everyone else. I kept Sophie apart from my family for 3 months. I flatly refused to introduce her to them. Sophie thought I was crazy at first, but I ultimately told her everything about Logan, including his history and all of the messed up things he had done. I needed her to realize what she was getting into. Sophie, on the other hand, has an annoying habit of seeing the best in everyone. "Maybe he's changed," she said repeatedly. "We're all adults now, and I'd like to meet your parents." She believed that family connections may repair with time. I wanted to think she was correct, that Logan had outgrown whatever drove him to destroy everything wonderful in my life. Part of me worried if I was making matters worse by keeping Sophie a secret. Perhaps Logan would respect limits now that we were older. Perhaps keeping her away made her appear more like a prize to be acquired or destroyed in his sick imagination. So, against my better judgment, I decided to accompany Sophie to a family dinner at my parents' home. I believed Logan would be kept under control in a public situation with everyone else around. I promised myself I would never leave her alone with him, even for a minute. I remember being so scared driving to my parents' house that Sophie leaned across and placed her hand on my knee, which was jumping like crazy. She flashed me a reassuring grin as if to say, "It'll be fine." I merely nodded. But on the inside I was thinking, you have no idea what we're walking into. I noticed a change in Logan's eyes the instant Sophie went through my parents' front door. It was subtle, but I had seen that expression before. This flicker of, I'm not sure, hunger, before his face reverted to its usual lovely mask. He virtually shoved our mother out of the way to be the first to embrace Sophie, and the hug lasted far too long, awkwardly long, forcing Sophie to physically back away. My mother said, "Logan, give the poor girl some space." But she laughed as if it was nice or something. My father just stood there with a proud smile, watching Logan be so welcoming. It was as if I wasn't even in the room. I kept a close eye on Logan throughout dinner. He kept finding minor reasons to touch Sophie. Passing the salt while allowing his fingers to brush against hers, reaching over her for the bread basket when he might have asked someone to pass it, that sort of thing. And he continued telling me these amusing anecdotes about myself that were clearly intended to make me appear like a loser. "Hey Sophie, did James ever tell you about that time he tried to ask Stephanie Jenkins to prom?" Logan asked, smirking across the table. Before I could stop him, he began telling this narrative. He practiced for weeks in the mirror. I caught him rehearsing this whole speech. Then, when he finally asked her, he got so nervous he threw up on her shoes. Poor Stephanie ran away crying, and James was known as Vomit Boy for the rest of senior year. Logan conveniently left out the fact that I had food sick that day from some dubious takeout. And the only reason I went to school was because Logan told Stephanie to meet me at a specified hour, knowing I was unwell. He actually put everything up to humiliate me. But of course my folks laughed as if it were the funniest story ever. "Oh, James was always so nervous around girls," my mother remarked helpfully. Sophie gave me a compassionate glance and attempted to divert the conversation. But Logan wasn't finished. The worst part was when dessert arrived. Logan ended up sitting next to Sophie despite having been across the table for dinner. He literally stood up and moved as my mother brought out the pie. Then he tried to give her a bite with his fork, staring at her the entire time like they were in a romance film. Sophie turned her head away, but he held the fork there until she had to respond, "No thank you." I dismissed that nonsense. I did not want to ruin the entire night. Sophie offered to clean up after supper. She's simply thoughtful like that. I was helping my father move some boxes in the garage when I realized I had been away from the kitchen for too long. I rushed back and discovered Logan standing far too close to Sophie at the sink. His arm rested on the counter next to her, effectively blocking her passage to the door. "James has always been the safe choice," he said quietly. "But don't you ever wonder what it would be like with someone who could actually excite you?" Sophie had backed up as much as she could against the sink. "I've asked you twice to give me some space," she stated firmly, but I could sense the stress in her tone. When she spotted me, her expression of relief made my blood boil. Logan just chuckled and clapped my shoulder as he passed past. "Your girl's way too serious, bro," he observed, as if we were sharing a joke. "You should tell her to lighten up." I wanted to punch him right in his pompous face. I felt my palm curl into a fist, but I didn't want to make a scene in front of Sophie, so I simply wrapped my arm around her and told her we needed to leave. Sophie was silent in the car for an extended period of time. I kept looking across at her, expecting her to say anything. She finally took a deep breath. "Your brother isn't what I expected," she explained gently. "He's more deliberate than how you described him." "Deliberate?" "Yeah. The way you talked about him, I was picturing someone more obviously aggressive or mean. But he's subtle. Everything he does seems innocent if you point it out individually, but put together." She grumbled. "I can see why your parents don't notice. He's good at making it all seem normal." I clenched the steering wheel so tightly. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought you there." "No, I needed to see it." She gazed out the window. "The way your parents just let him behave that way, It explains a lot about what you've been through. I wanted to turn the car back and face Logan personally, telling him to keep away from Sophie. But I had gone down that road before. Direct confrontation only gives Logan ammunition. He distorts everything, making me look insane or jealous, and my parents constantly support him. Let's just not see them for a while, I said. We'll come up with excuses for family stuff. Sophie nodded, but she appeared distracted. That's probably best, she replied. But I had a feeling Logan wouldn't let it go. Every woman I'd ever had was a potential target for Logan. But Sophie's case was different. He no longer stared at her with the intention of harming me. He wanted her for himself. Logan always gets what he wants. My parents made sure of that throughout our lives. Things became much worse after that dinner. It began around 3 days later. Sophie was getting ready for her morning shift at the hospital when her phone called with an unfamiliar number. When she responded, there was only heavy breathing. Then they hung up. She dismissed it as an incorrect number or spam call. Later that day, I received a call from another unknown number. When she answered this time, a male voice stated, "You're not as hot as Logan said you were, but you're still stuck up." They then hung up. Sophie told me about it that night, obviously creeped out. It was strange. They recognized my name, she added. I immediately thought of Logan, but I didn't want to jump to any conclusions yet. It could have been a random weirdo from the hospital or something. However, by the end of the week, Sophie had blocked 6 distinct numbers. The voicemails became more precise with phrases such as, "Nice blue scrubs today," or "Saw you at Kroger buying that healthy crap." Someone was obviously observing her. I listened to one of the voicemails and immediately recognized the voice. Drew has been Logan's best friend since high school. The same douchebag that spread rumors about me in the past. The same guy who continues to treat Logan as if he were a deity. "It's your brother behind this," Sophie remarked, giving me a new text that had just arrived. "Playing hard to get is endearing, but it's gotten old. You know you would rather be with a genuine man than his worthless sibling." I could feel the old familiar wrath growing up. The same emotion I'd experienced every time Logan wrecked something and got away with it. This time, though, things were different. This wasn't only about me anymore. Sophie did not deserve this. She began monitoring her rearview mirror on the way home from work. She started contacting me while she worked late shifts. When her phone vibrated, she began jumping. The strong, confident woman I fell in love with was gradually worn down, and I knew who was responsible. I wasn't going to let this happen. Without telling Sophie, I emailed Logan. "Meet me at Keller Park in an hour. No excuses." I half expected him to ignore me, but he almost instantly responded, "Damn, you sound serious. All right, big bro, let's chat." Logan was there in the practically empty parking lot when I arrived, leaning against his car with arms crossed and looking as arrogant as ever. "Wow, what a dramatic meeting in the park," he commented as I stepped out of my car. "Didn't think you had it in you, James." I stepped up to him and got in his face. "You stay the hell away from Sophie. You and your little minions." Logan chuckled and shook his head. "God, you're so predictable, always acting like the protective boyfriend. Tell me, does she even like that? Or is she just waiting for someone with a little more confidence?" Before he could say anything else, I grabbed the front of his shirt and shoved him hard against his car. His sneer faded for a single second, replaced by something colder. "This isn't high school, Logan," I replied. "You don't get to play your little mind games anymore. You so much as look at Sophie again, and I swear to God, I will make you regret it." Logan tilted his head, studied me, and then laughed slowly and mockingly. "Wow, I think you almost believe that." I slammed him into the car again, harder this time. "Try me." Logan, for the first time in his life, did not make a speedy recovery. His arrogant mask slipped barely for a second. Then, as if switching a switch, he let out another giggle and brushed up his shirt as if nothing had disturbed him. "Jesus, James, lighten up, it's all in good fun." I stepped back and shook my head. "You don't know what fun is, Logan. You only know how to destroy people. But you're not touching Sophie. Not now. Not ever." I turned to leave, but his words cut me off. I knew Logan was not going to quit. I could see it in his eyes. This was only a game to him, and he had no intention of losing. As I expected, things worsened. Drew and another of Logan's friends, a meathead called Tyler, began arriving at the hospital. They'd linger in the pediatric wing waiting area for hours, never visiting any patients and simply watching Sophie work. When her supervisor asked whether they needed assistance, they explained that they were waiting for someone or checking on a relative. Sophie started feeling anxious before her shifts. "I feel like I'm being hunted," she told me one night, and the dread in her eyes made me want to tear my brother's world down. The breaking point occurred approximately 3 weeks after the dinner. Sophie contacted me at 11:30 p.m., her voice shaking so terribly that I could barely hear her. "There's someone following me," she said quietly. "I'm in my car in the hospital parking garage, but I'm afraid to drive home, James. I'm scared." I grabbed my keys without thinking. "Lock your doors, I'm coming right now." My mind raced as I sped to the hospital. Sophie's next shift began in 8 hours. If she misses it due to harassment, she risks losing her beloved job. Her boss had already seen that her performance was deteriorating. She was late twice last week because she couldn't sleep properly due to anxiety. We only had days, not weeks, before this incident completely wrecked her career. When I arrived at the garage, I found Sophie crouched in her car, doors locked, continually checking her mirrors. Tyler's beat-up Jeep was parked 2 spaces away, with the engine still warm. When the coward noticed my car approaching, he fled. Sophie shook as she stepped into my passenger seat. I drove her car home, while my friend trailed behind to ensure we weren't being followed. That night, as Sophie fell asleep fatigued, I made a decision. I couldn't wait any longer to confront Logan in front of my parents, hoping they'd try to manage this nonsense. This had to stop before Sophie lost everything. The next morning, I gathered all of the proof, including call recordings, text message screenshots, and hospital surveillance footage showing Drew and Tyler hanging around for hours. I drove to my parents' house, knowing Logan would be there before going to work at my father's office. Logan was eating cereal and scrolling through his phone when I strolled in without knocking. My mother started saying something about phoning first, but I ignored her. I dropped my phone on the table in front of Logan and played one of the voicemails. "We know when you get off work, Sophie. Maybe you shouldn't walk to your car alone." Logan looked up from his Captain Crunch as if I were showing him a slightly fascinating TikTok. "What's this supposed to be?" "Cut the crap, Logan. I know it's Drew and Tyler. Call them off now." Logan's expression never changed. That's what's always made him so dangerous. The contrast between the poison in his words and the pleasantness on his face. "Maybe if Sophie wasn't such a tease, guys wouldn't feel the need to let her know she's not all that," he replied gently, taking another bowl of porridge. "Not my problem if she's giving out mixed signals." Something within me cracked. 28 years of swallowing my rage, playing the rational one, and allowing Logan to slither out of every nasty thing he'd ever done, all came crashing down at that moment. I did not think so. I did not hesitate. My hand smashed into his face like a hammer, the sound echoing across the room like a gunshot. Logan's head snapped back so sharply that he almost fell over. Milk, spit, and blood splattered on the table in a horrible mixture. A deep scarlet gash split his lip, which was already swollen, and his nose burst open like a crushed tomato, oozing blood down his chin. For the first time in his miserable life, I noticed something new in his eyes. Fear. Then he started screaming, as if I had hit his cranium with a baseball bat rather than my fist. The little bastard slumped to the floor, clutching his face and rolling like he was dying. My parents arrived precisely on cue, the same script, the same bullshit, just a different day. "Oh my God, my baby." My mother dropped herself to her knees, hands trembling as she grabbed a kitchen towel and rubbed it against Logan's disfigured face. "What the hell is wrong with you, James?" my father yelled, stomping towards me, his face crimson with rage. "Are you insane? You need help. Your jealousy issues have gotten out of control." Jealousy? I stared at them, breathing hard, my fists still clenched. Logan's blood smeared across my knuckles. They didn't look at me. They never did. They were watching over their golden kid, their shattered little monster like they usually did. And for the first time, I actually saw them for what they were. Blind, weak, and worthless. I tried to show them the evidence on my phone, but they didn't seem interested. He hadn't even questioned why I hit him. Sophie's been throwing herself at him for weeks, my mother yelled, wrapping her arm around Logan like a shield, as if he were the victim here. What did you expect, James? She mocked. You bring a pretty girl around and think Logan wouldn't notice? Please. She's been leading him on, flirting with him, playing her little games, and now what? You can't handle a little competition, so you're making up these pathetic stories. Competition? I couldn't believe what I had heard. He's stalking her. His friends are following her at work. She's terrified. Get out of this house, my father whispered quietly and dangerously. Don't come back until you've gotten professional help and apologized to your brother. I looked at Logan, who was still playing the victim as our mother fussed over him. But his eyes betrayed the actual story. The same smug delight I'd seen throughout my life when he got away with his bullshit. He had won again, or so he thought. My hands were still shaking from the adrenaline as I drove home. I called Sophie to inform her what had happened. So they didn't believe you, she said, but I could tell she was not surprised. They didn't even look at the evidence, they just jumped straight to defending Logan. She could not believe it. I hung up, my thoughts still racing over what I should do to keep her safe from my own brother. When I arrived home, I found her sitting on the couch, knees drawn to her chest, her hands holding the fabric of her sweater, as if it were the only thing keeping her anchored. Her voice was low when she finally spoke. James, this isn't going to stop, is it? I did not lie to her. I could not. I ran my hand through my hair and exhaled gently before looking into her eyes. I don't think so, as long as Logan's obsessed with you. My jaw tightened. And as long as my parents keep feeding his delusions. She swallowed hard and looked away, her fingers tightening. Seeing her like that terrified my own relatives. I felt like I was the reason, which pained me terribly. I came closer, tipping her chin up so she had no option but to look at me, see the promise in my eyes. But listen to me, babe. I don't care what it takes. I don't care what I have to do. He will never touch you. He will never take you from me. I will protect you. Always. She looked up at me, something moving in her expression. Then she wrapped her arms around me, clinging to me as if I were the only solid object in her universe. I could feel her trembling and uneven breath against my neck. She wanted to believe me. I needed her to believe me. But, deep inside, I knew the truth. This was not over. Not even close. That night we stopped waiting for the inevitable and began to prepare for war. I installed cameras, tightened the locks, and made damn sure no one got within a mile of her without my knowledge. Sophie contacted her lawyer buddy and began the paperwork for restraining orders. We weren't only defending ourselves anymore. We were going on offensive. Logan had taken everything from me since he was born, including my childhood, dignity, and calm. But, Sophie was mine. And this time, I was not backing down. About a week after I faced Logan, my mother began blowing up my phone. Logan left over 20 messages indicating he was upset by the misunderstanding and wanted to apologize. Everyone wanted to make things right. She kept using terms like family healing and putting the nastiness behind us. When I informed Sophie, she urged, "Don't go. This feels like a trap." And I knew she was correct. Of course she was correct. But I also knew something more, which I couldn't ignore. Logan would assume I was terrified of him if I did not go. He would think he had won. Logan worked in such a dumb manner. If you gave in and let him push you away, you gave him permission to go harder, dig deeper, and wreck more. I refused to give him that satisfaction. This was not about mending anything. This was not about family reconciliation or forgiveness. This was about making it quite obvious where I stood. We'll go together, I determined. The first sign of anything weird, we leave. I promise. When we stepped in, the house was crowded with my parents, Logan, my aunt and uncle, who have always treated Logan like he walks on water, and worst of all, Drew and Tyler, the thugs who had been stalking Sophie at the hospital. What the hell is this? I said, automatically wrapping my arm over Sophie for protection. We're here to help you and Sophie work through this situation, my mother continued, using a false therapist voice that made me want to vomit. What ensued was 2 hours of the most twisted gaslighting I'd ever witnessed. They took turns explaining how Sophie had clearly been flirting with Logan during dinner, how she must have led him on, and then panicked when she realized I would find out. Sophie's hospital visits were completely benign, and she was simply paranoid as a result of working too many night shifts. Logan did his role wonderfully, looking pained and emphasizing how much he was looking forward to welcoming Sophie into the family. Drew even had the audacity to detail what Sophie had been wearing on specific days at work, and my parents nodded, as if this demonstrated she was seeking attention rather than being watched. I watched Sophie's face pale as they tried to make her doubt her own reality. Sophie's breathing shifted when Tyler began recounting the exact hallway she had walked down on Tuesday to prove he had been following her. She was beginning to get a panic attack. "We need to leave," I murmured as I helped her up. My mother grasped my arm firmly. "James, it is time to make a choice. Your true family, or this female who is clearly trying to separate us." I looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time in my life. "Sophie is my family now, and if you can't see what Logan is doing, that's on you." Sophie's expression was tight when her supervisor called her into the office the next day. "Concerns have been raised," she began quietly, as if she didn't want to voice the words aloud. "About you causing drama at work." I knew Logan was behind this from the moment she said it. Someone had been spreading stories and whispers about Sophie's mental health concerns, her lack of trustworthiness, and her alleged history of false claims against males. Pure poison, expertly put. She had 3 days to decide whether to accept a transfer to another department or face a formal review. Logan was taking away everything she loved about her profession and the children she looked after, just like he had always done. That night, as we sat silently at our kitchen table, Sophie's laptop displayed an email notification. A message from an old colleague, a job, a new beginning in a hospital 300 miles away. Sophie perused the offer letter, her fingers hesitating over the touchpad. She didn't look up while she spoke. "Isn't he going to stop?" I knew he wouldn't but didn't tell her. I just made a decision. "We leave," I said. Her eyes perked up. "Sophie, we're done letting him dominate our lives. We're done giving him opportunities to twist the knife. I don't mind what it takes. I don't mind if we have to start from scratch. We're going the hell out of here, somewhere he can't reach us." For a minute, she simply stared at me. Then her shoulders loosened, as if she was finally letting out a breath she'd been holding for months. That night, she started browsing for apartments. I began making calls regarding moving arrangements, but all I could think of was how Logan had stolen everything from me since we were kids, including my childhood, peace, and relationships. But Sophie, this was where the cycle ended. He was not taking her, not now, not ever. I was ready to utterly remove him from my life, to never see his face or hear his name again. We had a new city and a fresh start. We were finally free. Or at least we thought we were. Just as we were relaxing into that tranquility, my cousin Chloe called. Chloe was the only person who could see through Logan's ruse when they were kids. She spotted him hurting her cat and alerted everyone, but my parents convinced us she was lying for publicity. She never forgot it. She personally called to invite us to her wedding. "Logan will be there because my parents insisted," she explained. "But I hired security only to keep an eye on him. And you will be placed with my husband's family, away from your parents." After 3 months of relative quiet in our new city, we decided to go. Sophie had a new job that she enjoyed. I was working remotely. Things were going well, and we felt prepared to face my family for one day, especially with Chloe's measures in place. The ceremony went well. Logan was a groomsman for Chloe's husband Dylan, my cousin from the other side of the family who was unaware of all the drama, so he stayed busy for the majority of it. We kept our distance at the reception, sitting next to Dylan's family while Logan and my dad were across the room. For a few hours, it looked like we would make it through the day without incident. Sophie was even laughing and dancing, which I had not seen her do in months. Sophie went to the bathroom at about 9 p.m. After about 10 minutes, I realized Logan was no longer at his table. Something in my stomach told me that something wasn't right. My heart pounded as I walked toward the facilities. As I neared the corner, I heard Sophie cry out. I started running, but Dylan and his brother David were coming from the opposite direction and arrived first. What I saw will be etched in my memory forever. Logan had Sophie pressed against the wall in the hallway outside the restrooms, one hand covering her lips and the other clutching her arm so hard that his knuckles were white. Her dress was torn at the shoulders. As I arrived, Dylan and David were yanking Logan away from her. Sophie lurched towards me, shivering violently. There were already finger-shaped bruises growing on her arm. Logan's eyes were wild, unfocused, and reeking of alcohol. "She's been asking for it all night," he muttered, fighting against Dylan's grip. Following me around, coming onto me. Everything I saw was red. Before I realized what I was doing, I lunged and tackled Logan to the ground. I hit his face so hard that I felt something crack and crunch on his nose or cheekbone. I didn't care which. I wanted him to die. He gave out a strangled yell, but I didn't stop. I reared back, ready to tear him apart with my bare hands. David, Dylan, or both had their arms around me, tugging me backward as I battled against them, struggling to get free and continue what I had started. "James, stop," Dylan said, cutting through the wrath. "We've got him. He's done." David, a cop from another city, quickly contacted the local police. I took Sophie to a secluded room where Chloe and her mother helped clean her up and calm her down. When the cops arrived, my parents lost it. My mother physically tried to keep them away from Logan, yelling about misunderstandings and how that girl was obsessed with my son. My father attempted to grab one officer's arm while they were handcuffing Logan. Logan's behavior altered abruptly. One minute he was crying, claiming Sophie had seduced him. The next moment, he was threatening everyone, yelling, "None of you understand what I'm capable of." As they eventually loaded him into the police car, he said the most nasty things about Sophie, making even the cops shudder. Several people had their phones out, capturing everything. As the police car drove away, putting that jerk out of our sight, I turned to Sophie. She was still shaking, her arms tightly wrapped over herself as if she was attempting to pull herself together. Her eyes were unfocused. I grabbed her softly. "Sophie." My voice broke, so I swallowed hard before attempting again. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you anywhere else?" She didn't respond at first, simply staring at the ground. Finally, she blinked up at me, and I noticed it. Fear, betrayal, and tiredness. I'd brought her into this nightmare. I had allowed this to happen. I grabbed her cheek and brushed back the strands of hair Logan had pulled loose. "I'm really sorry, baby." My throat clenched. "I should have protected you. I should have never let you near him." She shakes her head. "You didn't do this, James. He did." I wanted to believe it. I actually did. But the guilt ran deep. I wrapped her in my arms and held her against my chest and felt her body shudder. She wasn't only the woman I adored. She was my only true family. The only thing in the world that mattered. And if someone ever touched her again, I would rip this entire globe apart. The days following the wedding were completely chaotic. My parents went on a whole psychotic rage, calling everyone in the family to propagate their twisted version of events. Thank God for the evidence. Logan was definitely seen following Sophie to the bathroom on Chloe's wedding video. Several guests witnessed him making strange comments about her throughout the night. Of course, there was cell phone footage of his inebriated confession during the arrest, in which he essentially confirmed everything. Sophie and I were dealing with the legal repercussions when my parents arrived at our flat unexpectedly. They created such a disturbance that our neighbors phoned the cops. My mother was screaming about how I was sending her baby to jail, and my father threatened to make sure I never worked in this state again, as if I didn't care about his connections. At that point, they alternated between guilt trips about hurting the family and threatening to cut me off financially, despite the fact that I hadn't taken any money from them in years. My mother genuinely said, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us." As if they were the victims in all of this. Sophie and I did not waste time. We hardened everything, adjusted our habits, increased our security, and ensured that no one could approach us without our knowledge. Logan's restraining order was only a piece of paper. We both knew it wouldn't deter him if he truly intended to get to us. Distance was our only true defense. I received a call from Chloe a week following the wedding. Logan had been denied bail due to the seriousness of the assault allegations and his recorded threats. He was going to be held in jail until the trial, which might take months. My parents supposedly told everyone who would listen that the court system was biased against young males, and that Logan was the true victim in all of this. Chloe also indicated that after seeing the wedding films, other family members had decided to support us. After seeing the footage of the assault and Logan's incarceration, even my Uncle Mark, who was usually on Logan's side, labeled my parents insane. That happened 4 years ago. Sophie and I have lived a quite comfortable life since then. We married in a short ceremony in front of Chloe's family and Sophie's relatives. Sophie became the hospital's head pediatric nurse. I was promoted to senior developer. We bought a house, planted a garden, and met new people. Sophie is currently pregnant with a baby girl who will arrive in 3 months. Life was good, normal, peaceful. Then yesterday, my phone called from an unknown number. It was my mother, weeping so hard I couldn't understand her. The story that emerged from her cries was wild. Logan ended up serving only roughly 18 months for the wedding assault. His pricey lawyer successfully reduced the charges, and he was released on good conduct around 2 years ago. We had cut off all communication with that side of the family, so none of us knew. Logan supposedly entered a church recovery program after getting out, where he met a woman called Natalie. According to my mother, the church portrayed their romance as a redemption story, and they married just 6 months after meeting. My folks and Natalie's family were all supportive, assuming Logan had been redeemed or something. According to my mother, everything was well until last week, when Natalie's co-worker phoned the police after she skipped several days of work. Natalie's welfare check revealed 2 broken ribs, a shattered wrist, and numerous bruises. What was really wrong was that during the investigation, they discovered that my father had been actively assisting Logan in concealing the abuse for months. Every time Natalie threatened to leave, my father would intervene, threatening her employment, pushing her family about their mortgage, convincing her parents that she was unstable, and making stuff up. Logan apparently beat Natalie so hard that she couldn't go to work after she received a promotion that would have provided her with financial independence. When she called my father for aid, he advised her to apply ice and remember her wedding vows. Logan and my father were both arrested for domestic violence, with my father facing charges of witness intimidation and conspiracy. Logan was still on probation for the assault on Sophie, so he's facing heavy consequences. "You have to come home," my mother urged. "Families need to stick together in times of crisis. Your brother and father need your support. That Natalie girl is obviously exaggerating everything just like Sophie did 4 years ago." Nothing had changed. "Mom," I spoke gently. "Did you ever consider that if you and Dad had gotten Logan help when we were kids, maybe Natalie wouldn't be in the hospital right now?" She broke down entirely, revealing that they had always known Logan had problems but felt they were protecting him. "It's too late for that," I said before hanging up. Sophie proposed that we reach out to Natalie via Chloe to provide assistance. "She needs someone who understands what she's going through," Sophie told me. Logan accepted an 8-year prison sentence a month later. My father's real estate license was suspended, and most of his business partners parted ways with him. My mother moved out and filed for divorce, sending me a long letter in which she apologized for enabling Logan throughout his childhood, for failing to protect me as a child, and, most importantly, for how they harmed Sophie. Too little, too late. As I watched Sophie chat to our unborn daughter while watering our garden that evening, I felt no satisfaction for being correct about Logan all these years, only determination that the pattern would end with me. Our daughter will grow up with nothing but healthy love and respect. Logan took a lot from me over the years, but he couldn't steal the life Sophie and I had created together. Some people simply refuse to change.